Zimbabwe cash crisis worse.
Talking about Venezuela once again.
Systemic important banks. They removed the one factor thing called monetary awareness. Hey there, hope all is well. Back at you today with some more RT News updates. And as you can tell from today's title, we're going to be talking about debt, both credit card as well as student loans, and some very alarming statistics that I want to share with you from a few articles from around the web. And so as we move into this new year, more so, it's going to be more news on debt and more about defaults and more about the pain that debt is actually not your friend. And I'm also going to share a interview with you from a financial advisor gentleman who mentions about how consumer debt is consuming our lives and taking over our lives, and the problems that come along with that. So before I dive into those, as always, if you're new to RTD, I want to encourage you to click the subscribe button for more RT News updates, interviews, as well as live talks. And if you're new to Rethinking the Dollar altogether, I want to encourage you to visit the RTD University page, which is a link at the very bottom of this video, which gives you access to all my prior interviews from economists, authors, as well as commentators on the subject of monetary matters, as well as dealing with fiat currencies and a better understanding of what it means to rethink the dollar in the days ahead as more and more fiat currencies become worth less and less, as well as the dollar as more countries begin to de-dollarize their holdings in exchange for more things of sound value, such as precious metals, as well as the younger generation is getting a crypto. So other than that, let's dive into today's articles. And as always, I want to encourage you to click the links for yourself so you can dive into them deeper. I just want to scan the surface, give you some stats, give you what's on top. So let's get to the very first one. First article here is from the SRS Rocco report, and it's that world debt is rising nearly 3 times as fast as total global wealth. Next one here is justfacts.com, and it's about our national debt, and it breaks down the entire budget process as well as some historical facts on where we come as a country as far as debt. And the next one here is from the studentloanhero.com, and it says a look at the shocking student loan debt statistics for 2018. And then the very last one here is from Michael Schreiber, and it says no coincidence that credit card debt and income inequality are at new highs. And so the very first one is from our SRS Rocco, and it says some nasty dark clouds are forming on the financial horizon as total world debt is increasing nearly 3 times as fast as total global wealth. It says according to Credit Suisse Global Report in 2007, total global wealth increased to a new record high of 280 trillion in 2017. So he gives you some graphs here to kind of break that down. It says, according to the 8th edition of the Global Report, total global wealth rose at a rate of 6.4%, the fastest pace since 2012, and wealth reached $280 trillion, up 16.7 trillion from the prior year. So give you an idea what's going on here. He questions a lot of the statistics that were given and combats them with the idea that how can more people focus on the idea that wealth has grown and not really take into account how much the debt has grown. And it plays into the article released last week that said that total global debt was 233 trillion. And so he basically lays a little outline here as to why that can't be totally true and why it's more important to focus on the debt than on the reported wealth gains. And so just to highlight a couple things here, it says, first, how did the world increase its global wealth at a rate of 6.4 in 2017 when world oil demand only increased by 1.6? Then second, the financial wizards at Credit Suisse reported that global wealth also outpaced the population growth. And so here he kind of outlines the fact that nowadays it doesn't take much time to become a millionaire or a billionaire. Since millennials nowadays are very tech savvy and a lot of people are starting up companies and businesses online, don't really have to have brick and mortar stores. So the traditional way of creating wealth are kind of a thing of the past. So it's easier for a younger person to get to grow their wealth. The next here it talks about global wealth. Global debt is destroying real wealth. And he comes up with the basic economics formula that net wealth equals assets minus debt. Then he kind of paints a picture how that plays out. So in 2002 it was 86, and then every year it incrementally went up until the last couple years where it was 10 trillion within 5 years from 2012 to 2017. But within 1 year, which actually in 3/4 of a year, it rose 16. So that's basically almost double in a single year, and that has to do with a lot of monetization and quantitative easing done by central banks. Then he shows here how in 1987 there was a total of 50 trillion in global debt. And then there was a total of 120 trillion in global wealth. So a 70 trillion or so difference. But within the last actually 20 years, due to quantitative easing and all the debt problems we're having, there's been more trillions in wealth created as well as the amount of debt. And so for all those that know the idea that every dollar brought into existence is debt in and of itself, there's no coincidence that those numbers are the same. So just it goes on and on, but it gives a lot of great information here that is definitely worth finding out more for yourself. Next one here, justfacts.com. And it talks about, just basically gives a great outline based upon numbers from the Congressional Budget Office. And so just to highlight a couple things, it says as of January 4th, 2018, the official debt of the United States government is $20.5 trillion. Then it gives a breakdown here, 62.676 for every person living in the U.S. equates to roughly 162,000 for every household, and so on. Then it gives a good graph here, and just look at how high this debt is raising. It's equivalent to when we were in World War II. So now this is the war on terror height, as well as the stock market boom. Next one here, at the close of the federal government's 2016 fiscal year, the federal government had roughly $8.5 trillion in liabilities, accounted for a public held national debt, $29 trillion in obligations for Social Security, $32.9 trillion for obligations for Medicare. And so that equals roughly $84.3 trillion in debts, liabilities, and unfunded obligations at the close of its 2000 fiscal year. So if you tally up all the debt owed by this country, this is just primary portion, this $84.3 trillion, and that was in 2016. Then it goes on to give you more stats and more graphs, talks about how the gap between expenditures and the receipts received is opening up even more, and so forth. So more graphs and things like that on taxes if you're interested in finding out more. Next one here, a look at the shocking student loan statistics for 2018. So it says America owes more than $1.4 trillion in student loan debt spread out among 44 million borrowers. That's about $620 billion more than a total U.S. credit card debt. In fact, the average class of 2016 graduate has $37,172 total student loan, up 6% from last year. So just within a year, the debt that on student loans has increased. And this one here gives a lot of interesting facts as well. Can't go through all of them, but student rate delinquency rate is 11.2%. And it's good to say this year that number right there will definitely increase. Go down a little bit more. It breaks down federal student loan portfolio. Then we have student loan debts by statistics, by loan type. So it goes on to give you more numbers if you're interested, but it says more shocking student loan debt statistics. In 2012, 71% of students graduating from four-year college had student loan debt. So basically everyone that went to college had some form of debt over their head while they were in school. So more information there if you're interested in finding out the details. Hey there, just want to take a quick minute to interrupt this video to remind you to visit the rethinkingthedollar.com website, where you get a chance to see all of my postings as well as educational resources, and as well as visit the RTD store where I have some free material for you as well as some t-shirts. And if you're interested in being more of a blessing to Rethinking the Dollar, I want to encourage you to visit the RTD donation page where I have a couple links there for you to contribute to this alternative media of work. Other than that, let's get back to the show. Next one here is, it's no coincidence that credit card debt and income inequality are at new highs. So he lays out a case with student loan debt, credit card debt, and then he talks about what he considers cognitive dissonance, where the idea that more people are in a mindset now that because it's so easy to swipe your card, most people expect things to continue on as they have already gone in the past. So they don't really count the idea that debt taken out today must be paid back later. And so people basically would rather actually do something fun to create memories that are enjoyable and worry about the debt later on. So he gives a couple examples as to how that plays out to show you how it ends up here. It says time will tell if the fears about the increasing credit card debt are justified. But one thing is certain, regardless of how good you feel about taking a vacation you put on a credit card, the bill is always going to come due when you get back from the beach. And then the very last one here is a video from Chris Hogan here, and I just want to play it for a second so you can actually understand what he's talking about and how the whole debt is not your friend.
Hey Chris, Bob Nardelli here. Do you think the increase in credit card use in November, because the consumer was anticipating this new tax law and they figured, okay, I'll spend now and then I'll pay it off later. Last time we saw one of these tax breaks, a lot of it went into savings as opposed to reducing debt or accelerating, spending in the marketplace, Chris?
I don't think the credit card debt that we went into in Americans as a whole in November, $28 billion, had anything to do with the tax plan. What I think it has to do with is dependence. Americans have developed this appetite for debt, and it's in epidemic proportions. We have this mentality of, I'll just get it now and deal with it later. The problem is that people are going to be paying off holiday spending in July and August of this year. So what we have to do is start to help people to understand debt is not your friend. It's a thief. It steals from you now and it makes you pay later. So get intentional with this and start to understand debt's not your friend. We have to attack it and get it out of our lives.
Yeah.
So just there, I want to end that there. But the idea that, you know, he hits at it right on the nail, that debt is not your friend. But yet, you know, that's from a personal financial standpoint. But very seldom or ever will you hear a financial person on a mainstream news such as that mention how just our Federal Reserve note or our national currency in and of itself is a debt. And so not only is there problems with just consumer debt with credit cards, as well as the idea of going to school to better yourself with student loans and it's automobile loans, and there's, you know, mortgages and things like that. So you name it, you know, debt has become a way of our life just because we are in a debt economy. There's no real functioning inside of this economy unless there's some form of obligation to someone in the form of a credit card swipe or some type of signing of your future expectation on having to pay something. And so the idea that the Federal Reserve note in and of itself is a debt, and the big issue is that our government in general is so indebted that all those obligations of $84.3 trillion that was tallied up as of 2016 are continuing to grow. And so all that means is that our government will take on more debt, and so more of those bonds and treasuries will be monetized and the money will be put into circulation, and we the people will use them. So if people really paid attention to how and knew how the monetary system worked, they would have a better understanding how the financial system works as well, and that everything denominated in a Federal Reserve note or a Japanese yen or a pound or you name it, any form of fiat currency issued by a central bank through the government is a government liability. And so if it's a government liability, that means it's the people's liability. And over time, because there's no way of repaying all this debt, there has to come a day of reckoning where there will be a default that will increase the money supply, debasing all the currency that is currently in existence now, which will cause a very rough lifestyle for everyone expecting to have some sort of a normal life in the days ahead, because our monetary system will fail. So just want to shine some light on this debt situation, give you guys some stats. I would love to find out more of your thoughts on this subject matter. Definitely something worth keeping an eye on, because every financial instrument for us to invest in, whether it be the stock market, bonds, you name it, they're all denominated in national currency debt notes. So that's something to keep in mind, that if the debt goes belly up, so does your purchasing power, and so does all those things that you are considering to be your assets, because they're going to be more so your greatest liability, I believe. So this is all my opinion, of course, but yet definitely love to hear your thoughts on this situation here. Leave a comment below, and if you're new to RTD, click the subscribe button. Looking forward to bringing you more news and updates. Until later, bye.